listen to fall to the floor.
Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. I always try to do something a little different, explore, experiment. I've certainly been focused on pens made in China, as I find the new models, the piston fills, their level of quality, their dependability just has been growing exponentially. You may recognize this pen at the top as the 618. This is the red version. I got a clear blue one. I have two completely transparent ones, one with rhodium trim and one with gold trim, so I have a variety of those. And this is the flash one. You may have seen that listed in eBay. I have to admit that I wasn't really prepared for sparkles. You know, I knew it was going to be a lighter color. I got green because they don't have a green in the other transparent colors. And I think the other one was in a pink version, so that wasn't something that appealed to me. But the sparkles, you know, are throughout all the parts of the pen, which is something that's nice that they do. But what we're going to really explore in this video is nibs. A friend of mine from the Big Apple Pen Club came across a 12 karat nib for this pen. I think you can see the 12K there at the bottom. May have to just take my word for it, but you know, that's the 12 karat gold nib, and then here is the gold plated steel nib, which I've been very happy with. Be interesting to see the different writing of the gold versus the steel nib. The other thing that I found interesting is the feed. As far as I can tell, looks like it's carved Bakelite. I mean, that's pretty rare. That's pretty interesting. They really tried to duplicate the aspects of Parker 51, which we just happen to have down here at the bottom. Also an ebonite feed, but not quite exactly the same design, but some similarities there. Generally, there's a filler tube here that would go into the aerometric converter. The nib on the 51 is slightly larger than the nib that's on the 618. I don't have a lot of varieties of these nibs. I have a fair number of Parker 51s, but they're all pretty much fine, extra fine, or maybe on the medium side. You can see how that's labeled down at the bottom. Somewhere in all that stuff is some type of date coding. And of course the feed sections are also similar between the two of them. The Parker 51 has some age showing to it, so it's kind of discolored a little bit, and then the top one is from the 618. But you know, they did a good job in mimicking the design, and I use that term. The other thing that I think we should be aware of in the pen community, that Parker did work with Chinese manufacturers to produce some pens in China, so they could have had access to molds and design work and engineering specs and things of that nature. But to me, the 618 stands on its own. It does have similarities to the 51, but it certainly has taken that design from my perspective to another level. So we're going to reassemble the green speckle one and see how that gold nib compares. The green one now has the gold nib in it. I just wanted to show you compared to the transparent one. The nib is slightly sticking out a little bit further, which I think hopefully will give it a little bit of flexibility. It's just my thought. Hopefully it won't interfere with ink flow. If you turn it around to the back side, you'll see that the feed also extends out a little bit further. It's hard to keep everything aligned. I played around with this a lot, so it's not the easiest thing to get it, to be in a perfect scenario. I may take this apart again just to see if I can position that feed slightly more centered on the nib, and then we'll ink it up. I did some more adjustments. I put a piece of tape here so I knew how to align the nib before I screwed back on the section. And I'm happy with how this is now put together. So we're going to ink it up, and obviously I've been on a Robert Oster tear. So I don't have this in a pen, and I think you need a little bit of a darker ink in this fine nib. So we're going to give this a shot and see how it writes. The pen is now inked up, and I've done my test writing, and I'm very pleased with how it turned out. An interesting feature is to look at this chromatography from green at night. Very interesting mix of colors. That's a purplish to a really clean green to a brilliant blue. It's one of the more interesting chromatographies that I've seen. So in looking at eBay, this pen seems to have disappeared. The seller that I bought this from seems to have also disappeared from eBay. Thankfully, I received all of my auctions that I won, and I thought he was a great seller, and I'm disappointed that he's no longer available. He may resurface as another name. It'd be hard to really tell. They also seem to be selling this pen for a fairly large amount of money through some UK distributor. So that was interesting to see. But, pens will disappear. Maybe this was a limited run. Who knows? But I'm glad I at least got one of this interesting pen. And this now has a 12-karat gold nib. In my research, the other thing that I found is I don't find this pen being sold with a 12-karat nib. I know some of the other Chinese pens do have solid gold nibs. I haven't been motivated to buy one. It's, for me, having a lot of vintage with Superflex and all these other things, just putting a gold nib into a pen without it having a significant impact on the writing experience is not something that I have a desire to do. I like this pen with the gold nib, as you'll see in the writing example, but I'm also happy with it with the steel nib. So it was an interesting exploration, and I thank my fellow pen enthusiasts for sharing this with me. So you can probably hear this is smooth. Certainly lays down a nice bit of ink, but I was happy with the original nib. This one is, I'd say, maybe 40% nicer if you like something a little wetter and a little smoother. There's no flex or give to this. This is as stiff as the steel nib. I did do some slight smoothing on it. It was just a little bit rough and feedbackish, but nothing significant. And just a very minor buff with some diamond cloth, cleaned it up and made it significantly smoother. This is an interesting ink. It is certainly dark, as you can see from the smear, but it is definitely green. Interesting chromatography. As usual, I have yet to be able to relate chromatography to how an ink is going to work in a pen on paper, but it is an interesting way of looking at what their components are that went in to make up the ink. So hope you enjoyed this quick look at a a variation on a pen which I think is excellent and looks like it's disappearing from eBay. So if you'd like to pick one up, I suggest you don't wait. And again, this is a pen I recommend, unlike the 3059, which I do not. This pen has been reliable for me as long as I've had it, all the different models. They write consistently, they write all the time, there's no dry starts, consistent ink flow. Just overall an excellent pen, and I've knocked it around, I've had it in my pocket. You know, it survives a little bit of punishment and comes back to write again. So thank you for watching. May you have many great writing experiences, explore the wonderful world of inks, pen, and paper. Enjoy life, enjoy writing. Bye.